Hey there everyone, Paler here, and welcome back. Today's video is going to be a Hey What's That Killing Floor 2. I'm doing this as sort of a response to my own video, my Vermintide video. In my Vermintide video, I kind of didn't go too favorably on it, and I said a lot of things Killing Floor 2 did better. And I felt it was only appropriate to put out a video showing some of those things that I felt it did better. So if somebody's wondering about buying one of these two games, they can clearly see, alright, he didn't like this one for this reason, but they can look over here and say, oh, well, that one just seems kind of basic. And also, because Killing Floor 2 is not perfect, and it's definitely not going to be for everyone. But as a mechanics-driven game, it's actually really, really good in my opinion. I'm keeping this as a Hey What's That video rather than a full video on it, because the game is still in early access. It has been since, I want to say, April of 2015, and I think it's going to probably be in early access for another about 6 or 8 months before they're going to be ready to launch it. The game is currently very much in a playable state. The classes that are in there are all completely fleshed out and ready to go. The maps that are in there are all really well done and ready to go. The only thing the game's really missing at this point is final bosses. So I'll explain the final bosses as we come around to this, but you have to understand the way Killing Floor goes. And Killing Floor 2 is, Killing Floor in general, is a far more simplistic game than Vermintide was, than Left 4 Dead was. So rather than progressing through a story mode or down a linear path or something like that, Killing Floor is pure wave survival. You and up to 6 people, I want to say 6 people, I have seen some maps with 40. It gets a little confusing because they allow modding support. There's built-in mod support for this game that breaks some of the rules, but the default one I want to say is up to 6 people. You load in and you start off and they spawn a wave of a certain amount of enemies, like 35 zombies is the first wave. And you gotta fight and survive them. And if you, for each zombie you kill, or certain tasks you do, like if you're the medic, healing will generate more revenue for you. You generate currency, which you can then go to this shop at between waves, and you can buy new weapons, you can buy body armor, you can replenish your ammo, you can buy grenades and such. And then the next wave will come in, the next wave will be a little bit stronger. The next wave might have 45 guys, and there'll be 2 or 3 stronger ones mixed in there. You rinse and repeat for however many waves that map is set up for. At the end, say it's a 10-wave map, the 10th wave is going to be a boss of some sort. This is where Killing Floor is really right now still in early access. There's currently only one boss in the game. There's Hans, the German scientist dude. And he's interesting, he's well done, he's cool, but once you've killed him 5 times, you're going to have to kill him another 35 times because there's no other bosses. But it's early access, they're still developing that, and that is something they're working on. Beyond that, though, the game is rather, it's extremely straightforward and simplistic. There's no extra complications here. You choose a class from, is it 5? So you have the Berserker class, which is melee focused. You have the Commando class, which is your general purpose soldier class. You have the support class, who can do like weld door shuts and stuff a little bit better. He can also later be equipped to dish out ammo, I believe. You have the medic class, you have a pyromancer, and you have a demolition specialist guy. And they all do exactly what you would think. The demolition guy uses explosives. The pyro uses fire. The medic uses healing. And when you do things based around your class, so as you heal people, you generate revenue. If you're the pyro, if you use fire-based weapons or pyro-based weapons, you generate revenue. And you also gain experience. And this experience ties right in your class. There's a persistent class experience. So there's this like slight leveling system that goes on, and each level is going to give you a little bit of a static buff, and then on the 5, so at 5, 10, 15, 20, you'll get like a perk that you can choose from up to, I think, level 30 is the final perk. So you can choose like a perk of either you have more health or you have more ammo. And then the next perk will be maybe like when you heal, you either heal for more or you also replenish a little bit of armor. And you can choose one of these. And then the static perks will be, an increased damage of 2% or an increased damage reduction of 1%. And while that's really small, once you get level 30, 40, 50, because I don't think there's a level cap, they really start to stack on top of each other quite a bit. You can end up with some very heavy bonuses over the course of time. But that's really all the complexity that there is to the game. You choose a class and you're going to look and you're like, all right, we don't have any frontline guys, so you're going to pick Berserker. Or we only have one healer, I'm going to take another healer in there. You're going to take your healer in there, then you're going to pick an appropriate weapon, and it's really easy to figure out. You look at the shop and you'll say, these are the medic weapons, these are the commando weapons, these are the just generic weapons. There's a whole other section of generic weapons that can be used by anybody. And then you go kill zombies. That's all there is to it. But I hope what you're seeing in this footage is the killing of the zombies is really, really freaking good. There's something very satisfying about the way you can cleave the heads off of these zombies, how they die, and they just blow up all over the place. For the focus of this video, I put together the 3 different classes that I played. I played Medic, Pyro, and Berserker. And you'll notice that each one has their own little flavor, and while it's nowhere near as substantial as Vermintide, it's still noticeable. You know, the Medic, his guns have this futuristic look to them, and if I target a friendly, I can middle click on my mouse button and shoot a healing dart out. And it has a little cooldown in the lower right hand corner. I can only fire 2 of them at a time, then I gotta let them recharge, and they recharge over like 20 seconds. The Pyromancer, obviously he's throwing out Molotov cocktails rather than any type of grenade. He's using little flamethrower type weapons. And then his ultimate weapon that he can buy is this microwave gun. And this thing is just insanely awesome. You get it, you crank it on and you run into enemies and you just cook them and they just explode. And with the weak guys, you can just plow through entire columns of them, killing them dozens at a time before you need to reload. Or it can be used quite effectively on the big tougher guys like the final boss, where it's going to do a substantial amount of damage, but it's also going to piss them off really bad and make them want to kill you. Then the Berserker guy focuses far more on melee. For a while there, I'm running around with the Zweihander because it's the Zweihander, man. It's the Dark Souls Zweihander. This one's not quite the same one as Dark Souls, but it's quite noticeably a Zweihander, and it kicks ass. But beyond that, he's got this sledgehammer ability, right? So it's a sledgehammer with a shotgun cartridge in the center of it. So if you just normal left click, you're swinging the sledgehammer around, bashing people in the head and everything like you normally would. Come up across a big guy, you right click, and he does an overhand swing down on him, and it sets off this explosion inside of him, firing the cartridge, doing a huge amount of damage. For balancing purposes, you can only carry 5 or 10 shells of that in it. The Berserker also gets this awesome nail gun, which fires out like 5 nails at a time. It's like a shotgun nail gun, which does quite well at eviscerating people. But then his high-end weapon, equivalent to the microwave gun, is this insane eviscerator, which shoots you can shoot saw blades out of it, like a disc gun from Unreal Tournament, that'll bounce around and cut through enemies, and then you can go back out and pick the discs up and reload them if you want to. Or you can use it as like a chainsaw, and you can hold down the right mouse button and just plow through them. And it's similar yet different from the microwave gun, yet it's still really effing good. The commando guy, like his top end weapon is a Scar H, so it's a semi-automatic scoped high damage weapon compared to the lower damage ones. The medic has a fully automatic shotgun. Well, it's a semi-automatic, it's a clicky shotgun that magazine loads. There's just enough variety in the weapons, and the weapons are very, very satisfying to use. At least that's what I find. When you pop a head, even the base 9mm handgun, when that beginning of the wave starts and you're just popping heads off zombies left and right, and boom, 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 down they're going, and they're wandering at you without a head for another 10 seconds before they fall over, it just feels really good. Something you'll notice as this video goes on is there's a slowdown period. So this triggers when somebody does a critical with a global cooldown. So it doesn't happen overall, and this was something that the game had a problem with early on. Early on, you would spend as much time in the slowdown period as you would in the normal game, because basically every critical would cause the game to slow down for like 3 seconds, go into this like bullet time mode. And it became too much, so what they did was they put it on like a 30-second internal global cooldown, so it can only trigger every so often. But if you watch the weapons when this happens, even the reload animations, they're just amazingly well done. And yeah, that's my whole argument for it. As a mechanics-driven gamer, This here is what I find enjoyable. Do I wish there were more game modes for it? Sure, I think they could do something like a King of the Hill mode, where there's no waves, you just hold out on top of a hill for as long as you can, and there'd be maybe respawning ammo that would drop in every so often. I think that would be cool. I think they could do like a hunt mode where they would put, say, 5 super powerful enemies out there in the map, and your team has to kill as many of them as they can within, say, 3 minutes. So you have to manage this risk-reward of pushing through and killing the enemy without getting overrun by pushing too deep. I think they could do something like that to flesh out the game modes a little bit more. But in terms of just, I want to kill a few thousand zombies, I think this game does it some of the best I've ever seen, up there with like Diablo 3. Although, completely different experiences, obviously. I'm not saying they're the same. I would say that there's a little bit of a warning going into Killing Floor 2, that be prepared if you are interested in this game, be prepared for a lot of DLC. Killing Floor 1 has a huge amount of DLC, and they're likely going to put it into Killing Floor 2. Now, it's mostly skins. Character skins, they do add in some weapons, but like you'll be able to download new classes, new skins for those classes, new weapons, but the maps will all be free of charge. And that's the way they did Killing Floor 1, and it worked. It worked pretty well, I would have to say. Other than that, I did briefly mention the game is open, so there is mod support right now in the game. There are only 5 maps, but there are downloadable free-to-play maps that people have created themselves. Yeah. It's such a simple game. I think the gameplay mostly speaks for itself. I can't really go too much deeper into it. It's a fun shooter to kill a few thousand zombies with. One final point that they do so well, and I'm going to say this is kind of the counter Destiny syndrome. They know, the guys that make this know that the most enjoyable part of this game is the kills. So there are multiple difficulties up to like insanely high difficulties. And what they've done, rather than make it so at higher difficulties the enemies are just bullet spongy, which would reduce the effectiveness or the satisfaction of these weapons, no. When you're playing the enemies on the lowest level, they only have like 1/3 of their actual moveset in them. As you go up in difficulties, what they do is they make the enemies more dangerous by adding in more AI, more movesets to them. They give them more abilities, but they still take the same amount of damage to kill. This way you maintain, whoops, sorry, I just smacked my microphone. You maintain the satisfaction of those weapons, you maintain the feel of killing the zombies while increasing the difficulty. And it's really well done. You don't run into that issue of just bullet spongy enemies, with the exception of the one that's supposed to be bullet spongy. The rest of them, the ones that are, you know, the normal health, they stay where they are, but they become more dangerous because they can attack in different ways. You need to learn and overcome that. And yeah, I think that about covers it. If you've played Killing Floor 2, let me know what you think in the comments down below. Am I an idiot? Did I just crap all over Vermintide for no reason? Or do you agree with me? Is this a pretty good game? If you enjoyed this video, I'd ask for a thumbs up. Until next time though, this has been Paler. Thanks for watching.
Defeat is an